My name is Jessica Vogt, and I am here to inform you wonderful people about spices and how they have played a significant role in history. They've served many purposes, including culinary, medicinal, cultural, and ritualistic. The next time your waiter asks you if you'd like a round of ground fresh pepper
One more person over
on
here.
your steak, remember that once in history, a pound of this familiar spice was once a rarity so valuable that it could actually buy the freedom of a slave.
Interesting.
Spices have been a major influence in history. If it weren't for the demand and flourishing trade, Columbus would not have discovered America, and our cultures would be just as bland as our food. Today we'll discuss the difference between an herb and a spice and understand the historical account of the spice trade. Then we will discuss a few of its general uses, like in cooking. Then we will discuss some different spices and their medicinal uses. And finally, we will learn how spices have been an important role in ethnic and cultural, in the cultural scene, including some ritualistic practices. Much of my information that I'm going to share with you came from Wikipedia and the UCLA Biomedic Library online. So, first we're going to talk about the definition of what a spice is as opposed to an herb. Spices usually come from the bark, the bud, the fruit, the roots, the stem, or a seed of a plant, as opposed to herbs are usually the leafy part. That's basically the main difference between the two. Other than that, they're both used to flavor up our food and preserve it as well. As far as the history of where spices have originated, the earliest documented accounts of spices actually suggested that hunters and gatherers would wrap their food, their meat, in leaves and plants. And they discovered that with this process, it actually preserves and it also gives it a different flavor. The use of rare spices in cooking was a sign of wealth back in the medieval and Renaissance times. The peppercorn, especially during medieval times, was a substitute for money, as chocolate pods were at the time of the Aztecs. For centuries, the Arabs and the North Americans actually monopolized the spice trade, and this kind of made the Europeans mad, you know. So what they did was they tried to find their way into India and East Asia to find their own way so that they don't have to pay higher prices, because with every trade, the price of the spice went up. So this brought along expeditions such as Columbus's expedition to find his way to the Indies, the East Indies, and instead he bumped into the Americas, Central and South. Here he found spices like chilies, allspice, and vanilla. Over time, the spice trade became so challenging and necessary that the desire to control the trade was great. And this actually brought the British to invade India, the Portuguese to Brazil, and the Spanish to Central and South Americas, and the Philippines. That's why, if you notice, a lot of our cultures and our languages correlate. Now that we understand a little bit about spices and how it has affected society and the history, we will discuss some of its culinary culture. Spices are defined as anything that is aromatic, that is obtained from the bark, like cinnamon, buds like cloves, fruit like paprika, roots like ginger, and seeds like nutmeg. Spices and herbs have been used to mask unpleasant tastes and odors from food and to aid in the preservation of food. Not only does spice enhance the flavor, but some of its uses have been so common in many cultures, like cumin in the Indian and the North African, as well as Middle Eastern and Mexican cuisines. You will find it very common. The Chinese five spice is actually very popular in Asian dishes. Spices are available in fresh, whole, dried, and ground forms. It's best in whole form and ground when just before its use, because it actually has a longer shelf life. Spices are also undoubtedly the most important find in culinary history. However, prior to that revolution, it was considered of great medicinal use. In some countries, drinking a tea made of cumin with boiling water is actually used to distinguish false labor from real labor. And it also soothes stomach pain and aids in digestion. Black pepper was actually believed to cure illnesses ranging from earaches to indigestion, insect bites, and also applied to the eye, it treated a lot of eye problems. Interesting, that must hurt. Also, ginger shows that it is a blood thinning agent, and it also lowers cholesterol. It also treats a lot of sickness, like nausea. Okay, last and most importantly, every culture has its, traditions and beliefs. But now we'll discuss how this is significant in cultures and some of the ethnic rituals that spices are used for. Back in the Egyptian culture, when mummification was popular, spices were actually used to preserve the body, and they stuffed the cavity of the body with spices as well. This would actually stop it from rotting. In India, turmeric is pretty significant in the culture as well as the religion. A mixture of turmeric and camphor actually creates a paste, most famously known as the red dot, that women put on their foreheads. Yes. Everybody asks.
Wow. Interesting, right?
That's a mixture
I never knew that.
Yes.
Wow.
Spices are also important in the Greek cuisine and medicine. It is an important spice in the drink ouzo, which is drinking after meals, which aids in digestion.
Right. I've heard of that stuff.
Yes, ouzo.
Ouzo.
Ouzo tastes like licorice. Yes.
Wonderful. We love nasty stuff. It's the nasty stuff.
Okay, now we can understand how spices have played a major influence in history. If it weren't for the trade and the demand for spice, like I said, Columbus would never have discovered America. Not at the time frame that he did, at least. And our culture would be as bland as our food. We came to understand the difference between an herb and a spice, and understand the historical accounts of the spice trade. Then we discussed some of its general uses, like in cooking. We also discussed some of the different spices and their medicinal use. And we also discovered the different ethnics and cultural values spices have. So the next time you go to reach in your spice closet for that black pepper, just remember it once bought somebody's freedom. Thank you all for being here.